Okay, quick update. So what I've done is I did go back around and did a little finish spot welding here and there, but try not to put too much emphasis on that because it's a point I feel like it's diminishing returns. You know what I mean? Where like, yes, I got a weld a little bit better, but it also, when cleaning that up, ended up taking away more good metal. So anyways, I felt like there's a point where this is doing more harm than good. So I've stopped. I'm going to show you what I got going on. The whole thing is, me leaning on it so it got dirty again, but epoxy primered this cowl now. So she's no longer bare metal, but very nice, clean, sharp lines, I mean, all this looks really good, And actually, I didn't take all the paint. There was like little spots of paint. It was mostly bare metal, but little bits and pieces here and there that was still there. But what I have done is I've gone back around with a brushable seam sealer. Some people will look at this, maybe the only people who ever watch this is my wife, my mom, and my brother, whatever, my dad. That's probably about it. But just in some off chance somebody else watches it, understand that I understand that this was not perfect up in here. I had some bad metal. Let's show you around over here. Pascal side was actually okay, but this lower cowl area, which was obviously replaced, this section from about here over was a patch panel that I put in there for this lower cowl because that was all rotted out. Both sides were like that. But then up in here, it's like there's a piece of metal right up in here. You can see the cut. See, it's not this nice, beautiful little factory swoop kind of thing. And it's like, oh, what the world? And could I cut it out and maybe fake it until I make it over here and make it look more like a bear? Maybe. But I also wasn't worried about it. I mean, yes, this is somewhat visible when the hood is open. I get it. But I also came back and it's welded well. But I ran a brushable seam sealer all the way across this area. This was a bad area. I don't want it to ever be a bad area again. So, yeah, I don't know. Beat me up for that if you want to, whatever. Same thing like here. These welds, it wasn't necessary, but I did run some seam sealer over it, whatever. I didn't do anything here. It's an open gap there anyways, right? The whole upper cowl was good, but it was like, I'm going to go ahead and run this here. There's no reason for it not to be here. Came back, up into the joint up and around here. So that seam sealer goes all the way down. So it is seam sealed well. This was an area right here. See that hole? That's in the upper cowl. And honestly, I can't remember if that hole went all the way through to the lower cowl, but if later when I'm putting this together, there's a reason for that hole more than I know, then I can drill that out and make the hole. It's not a problem, but I covered it up, seam sealed over it. This is definitely a hard area for me as far as welding went. I did pretty good job with it in the end, I think, but did go over the whole area with the seam sealer. Again, this fender covers all of this, so none of this is visible. And the fender comes right up to this point, and the trim, piece of trim sitting right up here, it literally runs this top edge and actually goes over the fender and comes over and connects. So none of this is ever a visible thing, so understand that. But I come back and, if you look, I'm pretty straight. On the back side, this was pretty ragged. Me trying to reuse metal, because I'm maybe stupidly put that in my head that I'm going to do that. But anyways, just to make me sleep better at night, put it all together, and then a thin layer. It's really a thin layer of seam seal over top of this whole area. I didn't want to do anything big. I don't want to have like windshield clearance problems. But you can see, I mean, this is the same thickness over this end, and it completely rolls around to factory here to not factory here. So there's no difference in the thickness. I'm not worried about that. That pinch weld thickness feels the same here as it does over here. If anything, it's thinner. I don't think it's thinner, but it's definitely no difference. So I should not have any issue, even though I don't completely know how to put in the windshield yet. I don't think it's going to be a problem. There was a couple areas like around the stud, because you got this little stud here. It's what the trim comes up against, right? These little pieces, these little studs. For the most part, I didn't have any trouble. This one, I had a spot weld like right up in there, and it was like, it's not beautiful. So same thing on that side, there was a spot weld that I had to put in there. It's like, it's not beautiful, but I'm going to hit it with a little bit of seam seal, completely invisible, completely smooth on the seam seal. It's actually a little bit of a raise in the weld right there. but it's right up against this, and it doesn't come this way of the stud. So still, the only thing it could do is like help me hold the windshield trim in place. So I was good with that. But again, I did this all the way around, you know, again, seam seal up inside there. And, you know, same thing here. Just try to be smart and put a little bit right in this edge here. This is where the water drains out. Same thing with this hole. Covered it up. You know, this was a little bit more boogered up over here, but very solid. Just didn't look pretty. I don't need it to look real pretty because it, again, trim comes right here to this edge. You see that break? That's where that trim comes to. And I mean, here it is. We can kind of see it because I was using it. So essentially, you see that little stud up in there. It comes up against it right in there, and it pushes up against it. Of course, you have the side trim, but you can see this actually comes over the fender that's not in place right now. So none of that is visible, and so I feel good about, you know, doing anything I really want to do as far as making me feel better. It's not beautiful right now, but I also wanted to document the seam sealer before I go back over with the old epoxy primer, because I will put that back over the seam sealer, and then I am completely done with this until I'm thinking about finish work. But anyways, that's pretty done. It's done, and I'm confident that this is now a very structurally sound, and panels are definitely lining up because God knows I did the work to reuse the original metal here. And so, you know, it lined back up. That's a big daggone crybaby right there. Go ahead, cry. Go ahead. You don't do nothing but cry. Big crybaby. That's what he is. Big 200-pound crybaby. That's what I'm working with. Because this dog he's a pain in the butt. Anyways, I love him. All right.